Hello and welcome. I'm Bob Cusack, Editor-in-Chief at The Hill. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of the Sustainability Imperative, our virtual festival taking a look at what we all can do to keep our planet healthy. With the federal government allocating billions of dollars toward climate solutions and many corporations pledging investments of their own, it's an all-hands-on-deck moment for sustainability. How are public and private leaders building on this momentum and creating a new green print across various sectors? And what innovative technologies and green decision-making are paving the way forward for a more resilient future? We'll be discussing those topics and more today. And joining me is my colleague Julia Manchester, political reporter at The Hill. Julia, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Environmental Defense Fund, for its support of this program. We will be bringing you multiple sessions of programming today, now and then later at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can watch them all or tune in to specific segments, your choice. Go to our website, thehill.com/events for all the details. But before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at @thehillevents using the hashtag #TheHillSustainability. We are broadcasting live and will be taking your questions throughout the program. And if you experience any trouble with the live stream, please refresh the page. That should be a quick fix. My next guest is Brenda Mallory. She's chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality. She joins me now to discuss how the Biden administration is greening federal operations and bringing justice to underinvested communities. Welcome, Chair Brenda Mallory.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
You know, you've had a long career on dealing with the environment, and whenever either young journalists or young people coming out of college ask me for advice, I always say, do what you love. Do your passion. You've had passion on the environment. Can you describe kind of the background of why you got into this field and now are in such an important position?
Yeah, I think it's probably not accurate in my case to say that I started out with passion. What's more accurate is I started working in the area and developed the passion. And so I saw how the work that I was doing really affected people, how it really affected communities, and it made it something that I wanted to really invest my life in.
Can you describe, we've been talking about a lot of acronyms in Washington, and the CEQ is one, and FDA and CMS, and it's like a different language, really. But can you tell us a little bit about the council and short and long-term goals?
Absolutely. So the Council on Environmental Quality was created as part of one of the bedrock environmental statutes, the National Environmental Policy Act. And it was created at a time when there were no other environmental entities in the White House or really in the government for that matter. So it has a long history of importance in terms of environmental protection. And its goals actually very much relate to what the president is prioritizing. So in this administration, President Biden has come in and made climate change a key feature of his work, environmental justice, and making sure that all communities get the benefit of clean air, clean water, and livable communities. Working on public lands and making sure that wildlife are protected, sustainability, as you know, what we're here to talk about today, and then the National Environmental Policy Act itself and the implementation of it across the federal government is a key anchor of our work.
You mentioned sustainability, which is, of course, what we're talking about today. It seems to me, but you're the expert here, sustainability 10 years ago, you didn't hear that word that often. Now you're hearing it more and more in corporate boards with ESG. We have a new newsletter on sustainability, and it was something that just something no one would start a while back, but now in the lexicon of both consumers and the business interests. Have you seen a lot of progress of people talking about it and actually doing stuff at the local level in their communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons for that is just that you can see the impacts that are occurring all around you. So if you use climate change as an example, the fact that people are aware that their communities are changing in significant ways, that the stream that they used to, that they grew up fishing in, it can no longer be counted on for fishing, or that they know that there was always a hurricane season, but now there just seems to be hurricanes all the time. I mean, people can see in their own lives the way in which the environment is changing. And that, I think, has really made people more focused on, well, what can I do personally? And also companies, what can we do to position ourselves and make sure that we're able to continue our operations when things go awry.
The balance of infrastructure and the environment, specifically environmental justice, is an important one. We saw the Congress in an unusual display of bipartisanship nowadays. It's so tough to get sweeping legislation done on a bipartisan basis. We've seen it with health care, with the Affordable Care Act, but that was done on a partisan basis. We've seen it with the Trump tax law. That was done on a partisan basis. Here, the parties were able to come together and pass something. Describe that fine line of really needing infrastructure, but also ensuring environmental quality and environmental justice.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you saw Congress do, just again, is a recognition of the conditions that we as a nation are facing in terms of our infrastructure. And so there was a response to that people could relate to. And then they want it to occur in a way that the projects will get done. So, there's always a worry that you're not going to be able to do your project because of the environmental review process. But I think this administration has been saying, no, we're going to get our projects done, but it's also important that we do it in a way that it's done right from the start and not something where we have to clean up a mess afterwards.
As far as local communities, what have you seen? You travel a lot. You see what people are doing at the local level. What lessons have you learned at the local level that, maybe sometimes in D.C. we focus too much on D.C. and the Acela corridor, but we've got a whole country with infrastructure needs. What have you learned from local communities and of how they have cleaned up their communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really one of the great things about this job is that it does enable me to travel a bit and to get out and to see what's happening in communities. And there is a spirit of collaboration within communities that is always energizing. People want to have healthy communities. They want to have circumstances where people can have good jobs, where they're able to take advantage of the benefits of improvements in their infrastructure, where they're able to see their ports, as an example, to improve in ways that will help the communities and also help their ability to have economic growth. So one of the things in communities that's always very exciting is that people are able to kind of come together, even though they may not agree on all issues, they may not be of the same parties, but they find a way to work together in order to have success in their communities.
I wanted to ask you about specific initiatives. One of them I was reading about in preparation for this event is the Justice 40 initiative, 40% of benefits going to disadvantaged communities. Can you describe that process and other specific initiatives that you think really have helped?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Justice 40 initiative is one of President Biden's sort of signature environmental justice actions. It's a commitment that he has made that we are going to make sure that communities that historically have not been invested in, that the federal government has not made sure were receiving the benefits of federal programs would. And in the commitment, he says, we'll make sure they get 40% of the benefits that are coming from clean energy projects, from energy efficiency projects, and other projects that are focused on climate change. And so all across the government, really since July of 2021, agencies have been examining their programs, examining the ways in which they generally distribute funding or resources, and taking steps to ensure that they are including and making sure that communities who have been underserved historically are going to reap the benefits of those programs.
Changing the environment, changing the nation's infrastructure, it really involves a lot of players, whether that's Congress or government agencies, implementing it. How do you organize all these different, how do these government agencies, how do you talk to them? What is kind of the process for really kind of herding the cats of getting, let's go in the same direction? Is there constant kind of briefing of what they're doing so there's no overlap and everyone's moving in the same direction?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of emphasis on having individual task forces, of creating deputy level entities that are actually focused on one particular issue or another, in which we use that as a mechanism to make sure that the agencies are all pulling in the same direction. That action and that way of approaching the government is something that CEQ has been involved in since its existence. But in this administration, for example, the president created a climate task force. And the climate task force is a secretary level entity that gets together probably every 4 to 6 weeks. And in that, it's used as a mechanism to share information about things that we're prioritizing, what people have done, organizing plans for what's going forward. And so these types of task forces are a key feature of trying to organize and coordinate the groups. There's an infrastructure task force that was created right after the infrastructure bill was signed, serving a similar purpose with structures created at the deputy level and lower within the agencies so that people are in regular contact about actions that are being taken, things that we want to prioritize for a particular month or a 6-month period to make sure that the work is getting done and getting done in a way where we're all taking advantage of what other agencies are also doing.
My last question, I wanted to ask you, this has been an unusual time in our last couple of years with the pandemic. There have been a couple of people who started at the Hill. I have not met them yet because of the pandemic. What has been something that surprised you? It doesn't have to be pandemic related, but about taking this important job. It could be a pleasant surprise. It could be something you've learned that you didn't expect. Just kind of that kind of, now you get reflect over the last year plus.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's been, I would say, really exciting for me about this job is the commitment that the president and the vice president have given to climate, environmental issues, and environmental justice. And it wasn't just a campaign promise; it is really embedded in everything that we do. And it is also true that he has a cabinet and leaders across the government who share the same focus and the same desire to work on these issues. And so that I think that it maintained the focus and importance in the administration, even as we continue to move forward and more challenges come, has been a very pleasant surprise.
Brenda Mallory, Chair of the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.